Okay, and by this time, you're 2 years in now. Um, are you starting to spend money, splurge, go crazy a little bit?
2 years in, no, not really, not really. At that time, like I said, I was still on a budget. I still had my original accountant that I came into the league with, so I was pretty much still on the budget. I think I did have a house at that point, but it might have been I think I had a townhouse at that point. Actually, I was renting a townhouse. I don't think I bought a house until maybe my third year in. I think I bought a house.
Well, I mean, a lot of times when you start making money like that, everyone starts to gravitate towards you. You get a lot of people that try to siphon off your success. And was it around that time that one of your friends put himself on your life insurance?
Man, that was damn, Vlad, you did your homework. Okay, let me think when that was, bro. That was when I was playing for New York. That
Okay,
happened
that
in New
came
York.
later on.
Yeah, that happened later on.
Okay, but he actually put himself on your life insurance?
Absolutely. My agent or accountant at the time, I had to update my life insurance. And I was this is before like faxes and stuff like that. So I had to, for some reason, I had to mail it to him. So I gave it to my guy, my assistant, to mail it out, man. And and then I got a call. Yeah, I got a call a few days later, and my accountant is like, "Did you mean to put him on your?" And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And he's like, "Yeah, he changed the percentages and gave himself a percentage of your life insurance." I said, "That's crazy, bro. Of course I didn't." So I had to let him go, man.
So if you died, you'd get a big check, basically.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Wow. Well, okay. So, I mean, in 2002, you have this stellar year for the Bulls. But then the cardiac problem started around this time?
The cardiac thing happened in, what was it, 05, 04 maybe? I think it was 04. It was the year before I went to the Knicks. And it was literally just one episode. I can remember I was playing, we were playing the Bobcats. And before the game, we shooting around and stuff, and I just kind of felt this little weird rhythm. Like my heart, it was just like an extra beat. It was beating normal, but it would just be like an extra beat every now and then. And I remember I sat down at half court with Tyson, because we always would sit there and just talk about the game or whatever. And I'm like, man, I don't I feel like an extra beat in my heart right now. And he's like, man, stop playing, because a lot of guys, like in those type of cities back then, like they kind of really didn't want to play in those type of games. Like the Bobcats weren't like one of those cities you would really get up for. So he's like, man, stop playing, bro. Like, we got to play this game. I'm like, man, it ain't about playing the game, Tyson. I don't duck games, bro. I really feel a weird beat, bro. And he was like, well, go tell Fred, man. Fred was our athletic trainer. So I go in the back. I'm like, Fred, man, I got this extra beat going on. I don't know what it is. So he puts the stethoscope on me, and he was like, yeah, I definitely hear it. So he went and got the other team physician, and then they got their the main doctor for their team, and they were like, you know what, there's definitely something. Let's admit him just to be sure. So they admitted me there in Charlotte just to observe me and everything. I never was like short of breath. I never had any, I was never faint, nothing. I felt completely normal. I just had this extra beat. And then that goes into the next day. That night, the team flew home. They're like, we don't really want to put you on an airplane just in case something is wrong. Let's keep you here for observation, and we'll fly you out once we know everything is cool. So the next day, I think it was the next day, they kind of came to the conclusion that it was all right for me to fly. So they flew me home private. And I went straight to, I think, Rush Hospital, one of the hospitals in Chicago that was affiliated with the team, to just keep trying to figure out what was going on. So they had me scheduled to go inside my artery, like in my groin, and fish a line up to my heart, because they said they said they really don't know what it's from, but they were gonna do a procedure where they fished a little electrode up to my heart and kind of zap that one spot out, because they said for whatever reason that one area in your heart is producing some type of electrical charge, and it's making your heart do that. So they was like, we could fix it with that and everything would be cool. But when they were prepping me for the procedure, it just went away. It just literally went away. So they couldn't do the procedure because they didn't know exactly where it was coming from anymore, because they needed it to actually have the episode to fix it. So they were like, well, we just got to send you home. So they sent me home. I'm like, well, can I play? They're like, well, we don't know for sure. They sent me to some other like big time heart doctors all over the country. They started sending me to they sent me to Boston. They sent me to LA. They sent me to Minnesota, all of these big time doctors. One particular doctor had someone who he sent back to play, and he died. And I think because of that, he was really like, I don't really want to clear him because I don't know what it is, and I can't really rule out that it's not HCM, which is hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, something like that, which is like a enlarged heart or something like that. Because they like, your heart is large because you're a big guy and you're an athlete, but it could also be large because it's stuck like that, which would be a sign of HCM. So it ended up being a thing where like he was the only doctor that was like that. The other doctor was like, nah, he's fine. He's perfectly normal. The Bulls were like, well, let's do a deconditioning test. And so this is like I said, this is mid-season. So they're like, well, decondition. I'm like, what's a deconditioning test? They're like, well, you need to sit still for whatever, 3 to 6 weeks or something like that. It was a long time I had to just sit still and basically let my heart go back down to normal size without like exercise. I couldn't exercise, couldn't do anything. I had to just literally be a couch potato because they measured my heart, measured the chambers and stuff. And then I had to go back in weeks later and they would measure it again. And if it went back down to size, then they would clear me to play. So that whole time I had to wear a heart monitor. I had to do all this type of stuff, get MRIs, contrast MRIs. I had to get shot up with dye, I had to do all type of stuff. They never found anything. My heart went back to normal size, but the Bulls were still not willing to let me play, basically. And it came down to a situation where they were like, we want you to take a DNA test. Because we don't know if maybe you could have heart disease or maybe you'll eventually develop heart disease. We don't know. So we feel like with a DNA test, we can at least rule that out. And if we can rule that out, then we'll let you play. And this was like the year before I could get a big deal. And I had been playing well. My numbers had been going up every year. We were actually in the playoffs that year. We was actually about to we actually had made the playoffs that year. And I was going to take the DNA test because I'm like, man, I just want to get back on the court. But I had signed with Leon Rose, who's actually with the Knicks right now too. He's running the show over there now. And he's like, let me think about that. So he went and talked to some people and he came back and he's like, nah, I don't think you should do that. I don't think you should take a DNA test because I think you kind of setting a precedence that could probably affect some things negatively for a lot of, African Americans coming through the league. For them to test you to see if you could possibly develop heart disease, he's like, it's highly likely that you could because you're African American, and so could a lot of these other African Americans coming in the league. And if you let them do that, then that could open the door for them to say, hey, that testing, could possibly save lives, blah blah blah. And so I was like, man, that's kind of heavy. I don't really want to do that. And then also, it was one of those things where they were like, if you test positive for it, we'll give you I want to say it was like $300,000 for the rest of your life, $300,000 a year for the rest of your life.
Right. I actually looked it up. They offered you $400,000 per year for 50 years if you took the test and failed it.
Yeah, but the crazy thing was my agent had did the math because he's a super he was a lawyer before all of this. Leon Rose, he was a crazy super lawyer before all of this. But they had did the math on it. The Bulls owed me I don't know what it was for that next year. I had an option that year to get 5.7 or 8 point whatever it was. They basically were going to put that money up and pay me interest off that money. That's all they were really doing. And I kind of felt like at the time I'm like, man, that don't really sit well with me. I felt like that wasn't really honest of them to do that. And so it got to a point where they were like, you know what? Well, we're not going to play you the rest of the year, and I'm sure you're going to pick your player option up next year, but we won't play you next year either. And then you could sit out next year also and basically try to figure out if you're going to play again. So at that point, they were like, well, if you want, you can try to go out there and find a trade scenario, a sign and trade scenario. And if we like to sign a trade, then we'll accept it. And that's what ended up happening. He went out there and we had Denver Nuggets. The Denver Nuggets were willing to pay some money to get me, and then the Knicks, the Denver Nuggets offered $52 million, $50 million, and the Knicks offered $55 million. I was devastated because I mean I felt like, man, I had really built something in Chicago. I felt like we were finally winning, man. I was gonna get a chance to see what it was like to play in front of that crowd, man, and it was just it just devastated me, man. But at the same time, I was really grateful because the Knicks gave me an opportunity to come, and you know, they signed me. I had a bunch of stipulations in my contract where like multiple times a year I would have to get MRIs on my heart and things like that just to make sure I was cool. And I mean, I was always fine. And yeah, that was the heart thing.